Hey everyone, we're in Scranton, Pennsylvania at Steamtown USA. We're here to check out the museum and some of the exhibits. Right now I'm standing on top of 4012, the big boy, sister to 4014. Let's check this out. Steamtown National Historic Site is a railroad museum and heritage railroad located on 62 acres in downtown Scranton, Pennsylvania, at the site of the former Scranton yards at the Delaware, Lackawanna and Western Railroad. The museum is built around a working turntable and a roundhouse that are largely replications of the original DL&W facilities. The roundhouse, for example, was reconstructed from remnants of a 1932 structure. The site also features several original outbuildings dated between 1899 and 1902. Steamtown is located within a working railroad yard and incorporates the surviving elements of the 1902 DL&W Scranton roundhouse and locomotive repair shops. The Visitor Center, Theater, Technology and History museums are built in the style of the missing portions of the original roundhouse, giving an impression of what the original circular structure was like. The museum has exhibits about the history and technology of steam railroads in the United States and specifically in Pennsylvania, particularly the DL&W, life on the railroad, and the business, labor, and governmental relationships between railroads. The theater shows a short film throughout the day. Many locomotives and freight and passenger cars on display. Some have open cabs and compartments that visitors can climb in and walk through, including a mail car, railroad executive's passenger car with dining room and sleeping lounge areas, a boxcar, two cabooses, and a recreated DL&W station with ticket window. A steam locomotive with cutaway sections helps visitors understand steam power. Part of one of the 1865 roundhouse inspection pits uncovered in archaeological excavations is also preserved in situ under glass. There is also a very large HO scale layout. We're going to take a look at some of these exhibits, but this is only a small portion of things to see. Built by the Vulcan Iron Works in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania in 1919 for C.W. Blakesley & Son to be used on the New Haven Trap Rock Company Railroad, 43 is a saddle tank switcher type steam locomotive with a wheel arrangement of 040T. New Haven Trap Rock Company, or NHTR 43s, spent her revenue years working as a quarry locomotive for more than 2 decades. At one point, the company was producing over 1 million tons of crushed stone annually, and 43 was able to keep busy as she handled a lot of the traffic from the quarry to the loading terminus in Pine Orchard in Long Island, New York. E.J. Levino and Company No. 3 is an inoperable 030 ST steam locomotive preserved at Steamtown National Historic Site. It was built by the American Locomotive Company in 1927 as Poland Springs Railroad No. 2, although no record exists that the locomotive was ever delivered to Poland Springs. It is known to have been sold to the E.J. Levino Steel Company in Sheridan, Pennsylvania sometime in 1949. Public Service Electric and Gas Company 060F Locomotive number 6816 is one of the strangest aberrations in the long history of steam locomotive technology. This was a fireless steam railroad engine. Carrying no fuel and having no means to heat water to create steam, its engineer periodically connected it to a stationary steam boiler and charged the engine with steam, then operated it until the steam pressure diminished to the point of ineffectiveness and then recharged it again from a stationary steam boiler. DL&W 426 is the oldest existing EMC switcher and was built in 1935. Illinois Central number 790 is a preserved 280 consolidation steam locomotive built by Alco's Cook Works in 1903. In 1965, the locomotive was sold to a New York businessman who in turn sold it the following year to F. Nelson Blount, the founder of Steamtown USA. Lackawanna caboose number 889 was built in the DL&W Kaiser Valley shops in 1952. It is one of 60 cabooses built from scrap 2100 to 2200 steam locomotive tender frames. It retained its number after the Erie-Lackawanna merger. Erie-Lackawanna steel cupola caboose C191 was built for the Erie in 1946. The U.S. Post Office Department, now the U.S. Postal Service, employed thousands to collect, sort, and deliver letters along with newspapers, magazines, and small parcels. The railway mail service was a significant mail transportation service in the U.S. during the time period from the mid-19th century into the mid-20th century. Louisville and Nashville 1100 RPO car was built in 1914 and restored in 1999. Lehigh Valley delivered to the Lehigh Valley Railroad on September 6, 1916 by the Pullman Company of Chicago. The all-steel heavyweight car with a mahogany-painted interior represented the pinnacle of technology and luxury for its time. It was the equivalent of today's large corporate business jet. The LV-353 traveled around the nation, entertaining the railroad's customers, friends, and officers in a grand style. The LV-353 Black Diamond is the only remaining fully restored and operational piece of equipment from the Lehigh Valley Railroad, once a major Class I railroad that helped build industrial America and contributed significantly to the winning of 2 world wars. Famous passengers include former President Richard Nixon, General Douglas MacArthur, and numerous leading politicians and industrial leaders. Within its walls and under the gentle persuasion of sublime cuisine, spirits, and fine cigars, decisions were made that led to the opening of new industries, large anthracite coal mines, and other developments beneficial to the railroad. Baldwin 26 is a small 060 switch engine with a slope-back tender. It was built by and for the Baldwin Locomotive Works of Philadelphia for the purpose of switching cars and locomotives at their main plant in Eddystone, Pennsylvania. 26 would work moving materials around the massive complex until 1948, when Baldwin sold the engine to the Jackson Iron and Steel Company in Jackson, Ohio. It was used as a switcher at their blast furnace plant and remained there for the next 3 decades. It was added to the Steamtown collection in 1990. There, the engine hauled short rides to the yard before going down for overhaul in 1999. It received a complete operational overhaul and returned to steam in 2016. Today, Baldwin 26 is the main locomotive used at Steamtown. Canadian National Railway's number 3254 was built by the Canadian Locomotive Railroad Company, Kingston Works, Ontario, Canada in 1917. The Canadian government on April 1, 1916 consolidated 5 government-owned railroads, the Intercolonial Railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad, the Prince Edward Island Railroad, and the National Transcontinental Railroad, to become the Canadian Government Railroad. In 1918, the CGR was combined with the Canadian National Railway, which operated primarily in the Western Prairies. This railroad, the Canadian National, is still in operation today. Canadian Pacific 2317 is a C3 Class 462 Pacific-type steam locomotive built in June of 1923 by the Montreal Locomotive Works for the Canadian Pacific Railway. Delaware, Lackawanna and Western number 565 is a 260 mogul built by the American Locomotive Company in September of 1908. It was purchased as part of a series of locomotives replacing older, worn engines. It was sold to Danville and Mount Morris Railroad in 1936. Nickel Plate Road number 759284 was built by Lima Locomotive Works in August of 1944 for New York, Chicago, and St. Louis. NKP Class S2. It is one of a large fleet of fast freight Berkshires built by Lima. These fast modern locomotives were among the last steam locomotives to compete successfully with diesels. Grand Trunk Western number 6039 is a 482 built by Baldwin Locomotive Works in June of 1925. Built for Grand Trunk Western Railway as number 6039, it is one of 5 that has Vanderbilt tender and an enclosed cab. It was purchased for passenger service but easily adapted to freight hauling and is one of 14 remaining 482s in the U.S. Delaware, Lackawanna and Western Railroad hopper car number 81178 was built between 1910 and 1919. There are some activities that the kids will enjoy, including a ride on the speeder. This car is especially interesting to me because New Mexico's Santa Fe Southern, now Sky Railway, has a couple of these old Central Railroad of New Jersey coach cars. It was built in 1925 and has a seating capacity of 78. Delaware, Lackawanna and Western F3A number 663 is one of only 2 unmodified operating F3A locomotives in the world, and it operates regularly in excursion service for Steamtown National Historic Site. Tri-State's number 663 represents the classic cab units of mainline railroading in the post-World War II era. Reading Company 2124 is a 484 Northern type rebuilt by Baldwin in 1947. This locomotive was used for heavy freight trains of anthracite coal. Interesting to me because our local ATNSF 2926 is also a northern type. Rahway Valley number 15 is a 280 built by Baldwin in 1916. It was used in coal and lumber hauling until it was sold in 1937 to Rahway Valley, a short line railroad in Kenilworth, New Jersey. Canadian National 47 was built for Grand Trunk Railway of Canada as 1542. It became Canadian National 47 after the merger of the two companies in 1923. This Baltic tank locomotive was used in commuter service around Montreal. The locomotive has no tender, but a tank for water and a bin for 5 tons of coal built into the extended frame behind the cab. It is the only Baltic tank locomotive in the United States. Make sure you check out the HO Scale Model Railroad exhibit while you're at the museum. There are even some HO scale narrow gauge models including Denver and Rio Grande Western 489, RGS 55, and Colorado and Southern 22. Finally, make sure you check out Union Pacific Big Boy 4012. Sister to 4014 that is operable, 4012 is on static display at the museum. 4012 is a 4884 Big Boy steam type locomotive, one of 8 preserved Union Pacific Big Boy locomotives. It was built in November of 1941 by the American Locomotive Company, or ALCO, at its Schenectady Locomotive Works in Schenectady, New York. Number 4012 was retired in 1962 and donated to Steamtown USA at Bellow Falls, Vermont, and later moved to Steamtown in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where it remains today. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the channel.